Good morning and a warm welcome to our Cranley Abu Dhabi community. We are live today on the 21st of February 2023. This is our second online speaker talk for this academic year, but it's our first of 2023. So Happy New Year to all of you. If you are listening live, thank you for joining us. We're also very aware that many of our listeners will be logging in asynchronously, and we'll be looking at this at a later date. So wherever you are in the world right now and whatever time it is, welcome. I hope you get a lot out of our talk today. We started these online talks during COVID times as a way of connecting with our community, but you will have noticed we now do less of them because we also do our live coffee mornings where we meet our parents and our community face to face. Our next coffee morning is on Tuesday, the 7th of March, and further details of that will be shared in our newsletter, but it would be nice to see some of you there. Whilst I'm saying thank you for joining us, I'd just like to say thank you to all our parents as well. Last week, we had International Day for the first time since COVID-19 stopped these events, and it was absolutely amazing. I have been here for it's my 11th International Day, and I have never seen such a huge community event where people came together and our parents put so much hard work into it. So thank you so much from us to you. School is very much buzzing this week. We have Enrichment Week activities going on. Many of our senior students are away. They are on trips to Iceland, New York, Switzerland, Oman, and Kenya. Our prep and pre-prep students are outside right now enjoying sports days. We've got theme days going on. We've also got lots of trips going on with our pre-prep and prep students. They are mainly in Abu Dhabi, but just today we've got pupils going to the zoo. We've got pupils at the Yaz Marina racetrack, and we've got pupils visiting Little World as well. So, you know, I've just come straight from a workshop with a doctor from Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Nada. So our senior students who are on site are taking part in our Futures Week. So whatever your child is taking part this week, it's very exciting. And these experiences, these co-curricular experiences, are not just for fun. They all form part of our ethos here at Cranley Abu Dhabi in developing the whole child. So along with our academic and our wellbeing threads, they are part of what is different about Cranley Abu Dhabi's DNA. They allow for the development of skills and of values outside of the classroom. And we feel that's really, really important. And it's with that in mind that I'm going to introduce today's speaker. We're delighted to be able to introduce Laura Kay. Laura is coming from Role Models UK, and she's not the first speaker we've had, and I did just tell her that actually they are always our most popular talks when people watch them back. So it's excellent. Role Models UK is an organisation that specialise in developing life skills. They look at children between the ages of 3 to 15, and they have a range of online and offline programmes. I'm sure Laura will be able to tell you more about that. Laura herself is a teacher. Previously was a teacher, and she's also trained in the psychodynamic approach as in terms of therapy. So she's got lots of strings to her bows. And along with the team, like I say, her main focus in life is developing skills and values and character in our children. So I'm just going to pop her into the call and say hi, Laura.
Hi, hello. Lovely to be here this morning. Thank you for having me.
We can hear you. That's excellent as well. So our talk today is about resilience. And it's a hot topic. And I think it's been a hot topic for many years, but particularly as we went into what's probably the biggest resilience experiment that's ever happened. And I'm not just talking about homeschooling, although I know for a lot of our parents that was a huge resilience experiment. We're going to have a chance to ask questions once we've listened to what Laura's got to say today. So if you have any questions, please add them to our Facebook, or you can add them to our YouTube, or if you would prefer to do that, you can always send me an email. My email is lhewitt@cranley.ae. So if you prefer to just anonymously ask a question, if it's about your child and you want me to do that, then absolutely do feel free to send me an email. If you're watching this after the event, please, you can still email me if you've got any questions, and we will do our best to get back to you on that. So I'm going to hand over to you, Laura, and I'm going to let you talk because nobody's really here to listen to me. They can listen to me all day. So I'm going to pop your PowerPoint into the screen and remove myself. If there are any problems, I'll pop back in. But over to you. I'm really, really interested in this topic. So I'm really interested to what you've got to say. And this is about families, not just children, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's really important. Thank you.
So it's really lovely to be here this morning. With the time difference, it means that it's 6 a.m. in London. So I am hoping that this talk is uninterrupted by my children, but I might be testing my resilience if they do pop in to say good morning. But it's really lovely to be here with you all. We sort of discussed already that resilience has become a bit of a buzzword. And so through the course of this talk, what we're looking to do is, first of all, understand what it is we mean by resilience, and then think about what we can do as parents, as teachers, as a community to increase our children's resilience. So a brief introduction to myself. I know you've already had one. My name's Laura. I'm Head of Education at Role Models. And as was mentioned, formerly a teacher. So lots of experience working with children. At Role Models, our whole purpose is to build confidence in children, to help them manage their emotions and to support them in developing friendships. And we do this both online and offline. And I can briefly discuss that with you later if you have any questions. But again, it's this idea that we're giving children the toolkit. The best we can do as parents is, if you imagine sort of a metaphorical backpack that our children are wearing as they go off into their lives, what is it that we'd put in their backpack? What would we give them? What tools, what skills would we give them in order to really thrive? And that's what we focus on at Role Models. Why we do these things? Well, they're threefold. The first is we believe that confident, happy, and resilient children will have better mental health. We do not take the place of trained therapists and counsellors, but we do believe, and we work with clinical psychologists to support this, that the skills that we teach children from a young age will go some way to preventing poor mental health. It's not a guarantee, but again, it's this idea of upskilling children with the defences that they need in order to weather the inevitable storms. The next is we believe it increases academic attainment. A confident, happy child who is not scared of making a mistake, who has that self-belief, will attain better academically. And I'm not sure of the ages of your children here, but we do know that the skills we teach are really important in the workforce. Just as a quick explanation, the World Economic Forum posted the top 10 skills that they believe are important in the workforce. And they are skills such as emotional intelligence, critical thinking, cognitive flexibility, coordinating with others. And by the sounds of it, that's the school that you've brought into. These skills are fundamental in your setting and they are being taught. It's not always the case in academic settings. And so we really believe that these skills need to be taught alongside the academics in order to really give children everything that they need to reach their potential. So at Role Models, we focus on 4 key themes. They fall under resilience, leadership, creative problem solving, and collaboration. So by the end of the webinar, I hope that we all understand what it is we mean by resilience, that we agree on and discuss 3 main ways to develop it. I hope you leave this talk feeling upskilled yourself, feeling that you understand things that you can action at home to support your child's your children developing resilience. And we'll give you tools and strategies to do this, and then further reading at the end. And I will send this slide on to the school, and all the books that I recommend have clickable links. So if you can access the PowerPoint, you can just click directly on the books, should you want to. So what is resilience? At this point, I just invite you to think about what it is resilience means to you and perhaps to your children. What is it that you have in mind? Is it that they lack confidence to try new things. Perhaps it's a real task getting them to try different after-school clubs or different sporting activities. Perhaps they're really, really confident, but then they crumble as soon as something's wrong or as soon as something's not as expected. Do they respond really negatively to feedback? Whatever it is for you. And the good thing about the skills that we're going to discuss is that they're universal. They will apply to whatever situation it is for your child. For us, we talk about resilience being getting comfortable with discomfort. Now, the reality is that part of the human experience is if we want children to feel excited and happy and engaged and connected, the flip side is the negative emotions. It's just part of life. It's part of the human experience. And what resilience is it's not avoiding those things, but it's about what we say, stress tolerance, tolerating those times where things don't go to plan, the time perhaps when you don't get the academics results you want, or your team loses in sports, or your friends all sort of have a play date and you're not invited, or you feel really left out. It's about how you manage those those uncomfortable feelings. Self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is something we talk a lot about at Role Models, and it's that internal self-belief, that feeling that you can fall back on because you trust yourself. You might find yourself in a situation you've never experienced before, but you really feel as though, I know this is something that I can cope with. This isn't nice. I'm not happy. This doesn't feel good, but I know that I can cope with it. And when I think to my own children, I think, gosh, isn't that what we want for our children? Just that internal belief that they're enough, that they can cope. What it is not. So I hope for you that this is reassuring. It absolutely is for me. It is not a fixed trait. If you're sat here thinking, oh my gosh, this is not my child, this is something my child really lacks, this can change now. This is something that we can begin to develop in your children. And if you're thinking of yourself and thinking perhaps you lack a resilience, this is something that you also can develop. And as we briefly touched on before, it is not pushing away difficult emotions. I've had a child come to me and say, I was really resilient today because I didn't get upset. And actually, is that realistic? Is that realistic in life, to never feel those difficult emotions? It's not really. And we do not want children who are unable to tolerate those difficult emotions or process them. We want them to experience them, but know that they're transient. So that's something we're also going to explore later. So again, just have your child in mind. When do you notice a lack of resilience? And does it ever impact on family life? Are there times where perhaps it causes a great degree of stress? You might, as a parent, feel really triggered when you see your children lack resilience. I know that it's really difficult when, I see my children in situations where I just think, gosh, if only they believed in themselves, they would just be fine. They'd be able to do those things that I know they'd be great at. They'd be able to try new things. They'd believe in themselves. And so resilience often has, and lack of resilience can have a huge impact on the family. So I'm not going to play this video, but I will send it in the links. And again, this is a clickable link to a clip on what growth mindset is. Growth mindset is the belief that skills are things that we can develop. So I will quite often say, I'm just not a runner. I can't run. I don't know what it is. I can spin, I can do other exercises, but I cannot run to the end of the street. But that's having a fixed mindset, because I was not born with a lack of skills. There's things I can do to affect change. If I really wanted to be a runner, I could do the Couch to 5K. I could actually try running. I could look into nutrition. I could make sure I'm getting a good night's sleep. Truthfully, I'm all right with not being a good runner. But when it comes to our children, that fixed mindset can be, well, I'm just not sporty. So I'm not going to try. I'm not going to try a new sport. I'm not going to try out for the team. I'm not going to play with everybody at break time because I'm just not sporty. And at Role Models, we talk a lot about the power of yet. What is it that you can do to affect change if you want to be better? And you'll catch yourself saying that. It might be that you say you're just not good at maths. I have loads of parents who say when it comes to homework, I just can't do maths. But I just want us to be mindful of when we use that sort of fixed mindset vocabulary in front of our children, we're teaching them that our skill set is fixed, but it's not. There is always something you can do to get better. If you take the best footballers in the world, yes, there is a degree of, natural physical ability, but every single one of them would have been outside training, playing all hours of the day. Any musician, any actor or actress, the doctor that you had before didn't wake up being a doctor. They would have worked really hard and studied and put a tremendous amount of effort. So I invite you just to think about the language that you use around your child and empowering them with the word yet. And we're going to talk about some phrases and responses that you can give to support that idea of a growth mindset. So not all of these will work for you. And what I must say is it's not going to be the first time you say it that your child will say, oh, okay, I can do this. This is about really planting the seed about this power of yet, about the fact that we can affect change. So if your child is saying it's too hard, this could really be in any situation. This could be an academic activity. They're doing some homework and it's just too hard. Or perhaps you're just asking them to do something that sits outside of their comfort zone and it's just a bit much. Perhaps a school trip that they were feeling a bit anxious about and it feels too hard. What we like to do at this point is actually explain to our children what happens when we learn new things. When we learn new things, our brain cells are forming new connections, neuroplasticity, our brains are growing. Just like at the gym, when you're lifting those heavy weights, you don't build the biggest muscles by lifting up a piece of paper. The muscle gets built when you lift those really hard, difficult, heavy weights. So the same thing when we're learning something new, yeah, it is hard because you're stretching your brain and you're helping it grow stronger. And I think introducing this concept to children just invites them to see that it's not a bad thing that it's hard, it's growth. And growth can feel difficult, but something's happening. It's not a pushback. Too hard doesn't mean stop. It means you're growing, and that's really exciting. So I'm scared, and I think it's really important and something I say to parents, and I remind myself as a parent constantly, and I am not the perfect parent. I have two little ones who I'm sure would vouch for that. But it's really important that we validate our children's emotions. If you think about what you need, if you were to go home to a friend, to a partner and say, look, I'm scared, and they say, don't be silly, you're not scared. You just would feel so unsupported. You'd feel so probably alone, and it's not helpful. So the first thing is we validate that, yeah, doing new things can feel scary. Do you remember when? And then try and think back to a time where they have achieved something, then they've done something scary, because that's how we build that self-efficacy. So yeah, doing new things can feel really scary, but do you remember when you were really scared to go to chess club? Because you didn't know anyone, because you'd never learnt chess before, and now look at you, you love it. And what that does is it doesn't just rely on your child trusting you that they can do it. They're actually building their own backstory. Well, I've done hard things and I can do hard things. So when your child says, I quit, now this is that point where their distress tolerance has really peaked. It does feel like they just have to walk away. And what we say here is show me the hard bit, because something is really hard for them, but it's not the whole thing. So if this is on a piece of homework and they say they quit, well, you saying show me the hard bit gets them to stop catastrophizing. It's not all difficult, right? They can read the question, they can find the right page, they can answer the first part of the question. Getting them to focus in on what bit is actually hard is key to helping them put it in a bit of perspective. And then you can step in and help. And I think this is really key. When we talk about building resilience, sometimes parents think I'm trying to suggest that we just let our children suffer. It's hard, it should be hard, they're learning life is hard. It's not that. It's about helping them put it in perspective. This feels really big and overwhelming, like you have to quit. What part of it is overwhelming? And then let's discuss what we can do about it. So I'm stupid for finding this difficult. And that we can all relate to that feeling when you just feel really negatively about yourself. Something's challenging, something's tricky, something feels beyond our capability, and you feel stupid. And this is when we use the power of the word yet. You just haven't mastered this yet. What might help? So again, with the idea that I'm just a really bad runner, I just haven't mastered it yet. What can I do to help? And what I think is really key here is that we're authentic. So if your child is a naturally poor speller and they come back with 1 out of 10 in their spelling tests, and I know some of you have much older children, so whatever situation becomes relevant, it's not authentic to say, no, you're a great speller. Just like if you were to reassure me I was a great runner, I know I'm not. That won't feel good. That will just feel like you've not heard me. So I think it's really important to use that word yet. Yeah, you just haven't got it yet. What will help? And encouraging them to be part of the solution, getting them to suggest things is really key. I don't like feedback. This might not be delivered as politely as this. But it's that, and I used to have that as a teacher. You know, children would come to me with a finished piece of work, and you always feel like they're done, they're dusted, they're really proud. And then you've got to give them feedback, and they will internalize that potentially as it means they're not good enough or they've done something wrong, and it feels really disheartening. So we have a mantra, and it's that feedback can help you get better, and getting better is more important than being good. The aim isn't to be good. The aim is always self-improvement. So Ronaldo, or whoever is the best footballer, has a next step. After a match, he will get feedback from a coach saying, this is how you need to get better. Yeah, you've done all of these things really well, and now let's do this. And I always use the word and. So as a teacher, when I was doing a piece of work, it could be, great, you've got all of your capital letters and full stops, and now we're looking at commas. You know, making it and, not but, suggests it's that next step. And then any meltdown of any form. Now, I do not advise you have this conversation during a meltdown. You've got to let your children experience their big feelings, and their rational part of their brain is not working during a meltdown, so this will not be fruitful. But afterwards, Dr. Becky Goodinside has suggested this phrase, and I really like it. I think 2 things are true here. Now, the first step is the validation of whatever they're feeling. So it could be that your child was anxious about this trip that they have abroad. I mean, they sound absolutely amazing. So I'm sure many of them were raring to go, but some children do struggle to be away from family. So I would say, I think 2 things are true here. One, I think you're feeling really anxious. I think you're feeling really nervous about being away from your family and being away from home, and you're not feeling good about it. But the second thing that is true is that I know you're going to have a wonderful time with your friends. I know that you were going to go, and when you come back, you'll have the most wonderful stories. And you can apply this to anything. If your child's upset about missing out on a party, you know, I think 2 things are true. One is that you're really sad that you can't go to the party. 2 is that there are many other parties you can go to. And the idea with this is that we're just validating them so they feel heard, and then they can hear your solution or your reassurance. So how does what we do have an impact? And I think this is really difficult to say to parents and to understand as a parent, but our responses are being emulated constantly. it is what it is, and there is no such thing as a perfect parent. So please, if you are sitting here thinking, oh gosh, I tell my kids constantly that I can't do things, and whatever it is, there's nothing that can't be repaired, but kids are watching us. And what's also really important to identify is that we are biologically programmed to want to protect our kids. We use the term sometimes that snowplow parent, the parent that smooths the path before the children walk out, so it's all smooth. But we know that you can only build resilience by overcoming things. The theory isn't enough to feel resilient. It's a huge part of it. Understanding that problems and setbacks are normal, but what really builds the resilience is overcoming them. So we're going to discuss ways in which we can not step back as parents, but step to the side. And then this I love, and what I've done here is I've got a link to a TED talk by somebody called Lucy Hone. Again, I invite you to watch it when you get these slides. Lucy Hone did a tremendous amount of work on resilience and researching resilience, and then she suffered an unimaginable personal tragedy that really tested her understanding of resilience. And what she discovered is that resilient people have three different traits, three specific traits, and we're going to explore those traits and what we can do to develop those traits in our children. So number one is that they know that difficult things happen. That's just part of life. There's not that victim mentality, that why me? And to understand that we're not entitled to perfection. I remember once being at a school and a child said, but why has this happened to me? And the response from the teacher was, well, why not you? And that really, I don't know that was the most empathetic response, but that really sort of struck me. If children expect that sometimes things won't go their way, expect that sometimes difficult things happen, and that they're not entitled to perfection, it's that first stage of accepting it. The first stage of bouncing back is not wasting all that energy fighting against why this has happened. So how do we cultivate that? So the first thing we say is to not hide those difficult emotions from your children. Now, age appropriately, it's okay to tell them when you've had a bad day or when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by things. I sometimes think that as parents, we feel this huge responsibility to put on a perfect smile when our children get home from school and have dinner ready and everything's great. But is that suggesting to them that that's what life is? Parents sail through their day, everything's great, and when bad things happen, it just happens to them. Or is it okay to share that you had a really long, hard day at work and you're just feeling a bit exhausted? Or are you overwhelmed because you've got a lot to do? Or did you make dinner and it burnt and now you're really frustrated because you have to start again from scratch? Can we just show our children that our lives aren't perfect and that that's okay? Now, the next one is to allow them to experience hard times. And we're going to look at what we mean by that, because that probably feels quite overwhelming as a parent, and I can absolutely relate. There was a time at soft play, my husband always reminds me, when my kids were very little and a child pushed my daughter off the soft play, I went over like a unhinged animal to take the other child away from my child. We're programmed to want to protect them, but we're going to discuss what we could do that might be more helpful. So we've got some examples, and again, depending on how old your child is, this will look very different. But with the example of a 6-year-old and they're falling out with their friend, it happens if your child is only 6. If your oldest child is 6, it will continue to happen. Brace yourself. And it's really upsetting when they come home from school upset. And our instinct might be to tell them what to do, or to call the other parent and to fix it. And I actually noticed, I was doing this a lot with my daughter, if something happened, I would say, well, what you need to do is you need to tell them, or you need to go to a teacher. And as much as I thought I was being helpful, what it's probably doing is telling her that I'm the one that can solve it. and that she can't cope and she needs me to fix it. So what I started doing, which was really difficult, was saying, do you want me to just listen to you, or do you want me to tell you what I think you should do? And 9 times out of 10, she just wanted me to listen. And I think that just showed her that I trusted her. And so instead of jumping in and fixing it as parents, is it more helpful if we just put it to our child? So what do you think would help? And if they say, look, please, will you talk to the teacher? I'm not saying you shouldn't, but let them be part of that decision to talk to the teacher. Let them be the one to say, I've identified what I think the solution is. If you've got an 11-year-old who isn't with a group at school with her friends, and you just think, oh, well, the teacher probably hasn't realised that all her friends are in one group and she's in another group, I'll just call the teacher to swap. Yes, you could do that. But if we think about our adult life and our day-to-day experiences, how often are we put in groups with people that we don't particularly want to be with? It could be at work, it could be really in any setting. And isn't that a skill in itself, communicating with people who are a bit different to us, who we don't see eye to eye with? Is it more helpful to say, look, yeah, I get that. That's really frustrating, but this project is only going on for this week, and hopefully next time you'll be with your friends. I'm not saying we do nothing, but I'm just inviting you to think, is there a more helpful solution to build your child's resilience? So the second trait of a resilient person is they choose where to give their attention. We are hardwired to find negative threat, and some of us more so than others. And so what we can do is we have this dialed up stress response. We're constantly thinking of where potential to go wrong is. But what we can do as families is to practice tuning into the good, because there is always good. So we have a sort of a motto that you could use, is it's to hunt the good stuff. So perhaps you've gone on a family day out somewhere and it's all gone wrong, your car breaks down, or it's raining. I don't know how much rain you guys get, but it rains a lot here, and things just haven't gone to plan. And it's okay to feel really disappointed about that. But can your family motto be to hunt the good stuff? Was it okay because you all sat in the car and had an ice cream and listened to music? Or I just invite you, whenever something doesn't quite go to plan, don't let's fixate on that, acknowledge it, and then let's look for something good. So I've got a link here to the Happy Self Journal. You can have a gratitude journal, whatever you think will work for your child. And then this one, to purposely analyze what we can and can't control. So we've got this diagram here, and you can either draw this out with your child or explain it to them. But in every situation, there are things that we can control and things that we can't. And quite often we focus on those things out of our control. So if this is with the example of perhaps an entrance exam, they're going to a new school or they're doing their exams, and the things that are in their control are whether or not they smile, how rested and prepared they are, how much practice they've done, and how smart they look. These are the things that they can control and affect change. There are things that are out of their control, like what's in the exam paper, what questions they're asked, who interviews them, how well everyone else does. And it's important to acknowledge those things that are sitting uncomfortably, that are causing some degree of distress, but it doesn't serve us to focus on them. So let's acknowledge them, and now let's focus on what we can control. And this diagram can really relate to any situation. And then there are sometimes those things in the middle, like being on time. You can do your best, but there can always be unforeseen circumstances. The younger child, it might look like this. They're going on a play date, and all they're thinking about are the things that are worrying them. So what if they don't like the food? They might get shy, they might miss us. And that's really, they're real fears for your children. And that's fine. I have, this feels like my own personal therapy. I have children who really get anxious to go on play dates, and they're just focusing on those negative things. They're there, but what are they missing? Maybe the parent they're going to is a much better cake baker than I am, and they'll get a much better dessert, or their friend has a pet that they don't have, or there are just new toys that they get to play with. Those negative things are still there. They are worried about missing us and getting shy, and not liking the food is really big for little children. But if they just focus on that, they're missing out on the actual reason why you've arranged the play date. And then for those children who will not be pacified by just what else is there, what are you missing, we can look further into what they're anxious about. So what's possible versus what's probable. Is it possible that the parent you're going to will give you a plate of all your worst foods? It's possible. Is it probable? Is it likely that there'll be nothing that you can eat? Or is there more chance that there'll be some things at least that you like? And if it did happen that the parent gave you a plate of Brussels sprouts and pickles, or whatever it is you don't like, would you cope? And then you can discuss what that would look like. What would you say to the parent? What would it sound like if you were given a plate of food that really made you uncomfortable and made you scared? And discuss the words that you would use. Excuse me, I'm really sorry. Is there something else I could have? Or I've tried it. Do you mind if I don't have any more? Whatever it is, discuss how your child would cope with that, because they would cope. And then for those children who are just totally consumed by anxiety, those children who you can see you're out and about, but their anxious minds are really working at full speed, you can have a worry list or a worry box. And the idea is that you just choose when to worry. It could be daily, it could be weekly, but give your child a designated time where they sit down with you and they can go through all their worries. And they know that time is coming. So they can write it down, they can put it in the box or write it on a list, and then it's there to be addressed later, and now they can get on with their activity. And the third trait of a resilient person is they're constantly questioning their thinking and what they're doing, and is it helping them? And I think this is so powerful if this is something you can master. And a lot of these strategies I give you here are things that we learn as adults by experience. But imagine teaching our children that you don't have to believe everything we think. If we think that everyone else is far cleverer than us, we don't have to believe that. If we think we're stupid, or if we think nobody likes us, these are just thoughts. They're not real. And I'm going to show you that, again, you can show this to your child or explain it to them, but our thoughts create feelings and therefore actions, and they feed back into our thoughts. So if I'm sat in a maths lesson thinking I'm really stupid, I just can't do this, everyone else can, I can't, I'm going to feel rubbish. I'm going to feel really sad and I'm not motivated. The action will be I probably won't try, probably stare out the window or sit and avoid doing it. And that's just going to feed into my initial thought was that I'm rubbish at maths. But if my thought was I can't do it yet, I can't do it yet. It's something that I can change. It's just not something I've grasped now. My feelings could be hopeful. And my action could be asking a teacher for help, coming home and telling a parent that it's something I need support with, asking a friend. And then my thought is that I'm working on this and I'm empowered and I'm feeling better. And so our thoughts are so powerful. And I think what a gift to show our children that. And there are some thinking traps that we fall into as adults, as children. And again, pointing this out to children isn't necessarily going to change instantly how they think, but it's just going to let them know what their mind is doing. So you've got fortune telling. I know I'm going to fail. Point out those times where your child is telling you what's going to happen. I'm going to get it all wrong. I'm going to fail. I'm going to miss you so much. I'm going to hate it. You're not a fortune teller. Remind them of that control they have. Remind them of this. If they think those things, what are they going to feel? And therefore, how are they going to behave? What could I know I'm going to fail change to? I'm not feeling confident. Okay, what can you do about it? Mind reading. My friends will think I'm boring. Again, point out to them that they don't know what other people think. They're feeling that. But what's the evidence? What's the evidence that your friends think you're boring? Because actually, when I collected you from school, you were having a great chat and giggle with all your friends, or you had some friends over on the weekend and you were giggling non-stop and were having a great time. Labeling, I'm not sporty, I'm not confident, I'm not successful. That's that fixed mindset discussion. So if you're not sporty or you don't feel sporty, what are you going to do about it if you want to be sporty? Let's feel proactive. Let's think about, if things are important to us, what changes can we make? Generalizing, and we all get into those feelings. I never win anything. I always get picked last. And we get into those funks where everything just feels a bit horrible. But you're just generalizing because that doesn't always happen. And now let's think about the impact of telling ourselves this. Because you're just going to feel really bad about yourself and you're going to feel really low. You didn't get picked for this, or you didn't win this. But last sports day, you were on the red team and you did win. And then catastrophizing. I'm missing the party. Everyone will talk about it forever and ever. And no one will be my friend and I'll always be alone. And yes, we do have moments where it feels like that. And perhaps not in the thick of those feelings, but afterwards say, look, you're catastrophizing. Yes, you are missing out on the party. People will not talk about it forever. You've created a whole chain of things that are going to happen that are very unlikely to happen. What if you just said, I missed the party and I'm feeling really left out. I can't wait to the next one. You know, let's question our thinking. So some practical ideas for you. Praise the process, not the outcome. And that's really key because it's not really about that one spelling test or that one sports race. It's about the skills of determination, of trying hard, of progress. So let's focus on those things and not the outcome. I'm really proud. Yes, you got 10 out of 10 in a spelling, and that's great. But I'm really proud. The thing that I'm most proud about is that you came home from school and before playing outside, you practiced your spelling. And it's progress, not perfection, because perfection is not attainable. And you can model that to yourself. You know, I went for a run and I actually made it to the end of the next road. And I'm really proud of myself. I'm not going to think I'm a rubbish runner and then run a marathon. But it's that progress, and celebrate your own progress and celebrate their progress. Neuroplasticity is that idea that our brains are growing, and our brain is a muscle, and when we build that muscle, it is hard. Show me the hard part. Let's focus in on the bit that's difficult. I like this one, a sense of humor. Does it always have to be so heavy? Can we laugh at our own mistakes? Can I burn a cake? And yes, it's really frustrating, but it's also quite humorous that I can just not bake a cake. It's like part of my brain that doesn't function in the same way as others. Does it have to always be so difficult? I like this one. You know, we often tell our children to try new things, to step outside their comfort zone, while we eat at the same restaurants, wear the same clothes, hang out with the same people. Are we modeling doing that? And can you do that together as a family? Is there a new skill or a new activity that you can do together? ABC is just a bit of a mantra you can say to yourself in the thick of those heavy meltdowns. Can you just accept that that's the situation, take a moment, and then choose how you address it? Look for the backstory. This is when everyone in the class can do a cartwheel except your child, or everyone always gets picked first except your child. Can you look for the backstory? The best gymnast in the class didn't wake up doing backflips. Did they practice every single day in the garden? Do you have fans of, you know, children who are huge football fans? And let's look at the backstory of those footballers or those singers. What is it that they did to get there? And then mistakes being part of a family culture, just acknowledge and celebrate them. Let's not hide them from our children. Here we've got some book recommendations. So for those with little children, again, when I send this around, there are clickable links to all of these, but some books to read. It's quite, it's less confronting to discuss feelings through characters. And I do actually recommend to parents that when you are talking to your children about their feelings, do it when you're doing something else. Can you do it when you're painting together or when you're driving somewhere or going for a walk? It's quite intimidating to sit a child down and discuss feelings. And again, doing it through characters is always a great way to explore. Oh gosh, you know, Ruby is she's got this really big, heavy worry cloud that's following her around. Have you ever felt like that? For those with older children, here are some book recommendations. And for those parents who wish to further upskill, we've got some books here. And then my details. If you do have any questions, you are welcome to send them into the school. You can also contact me at info@rolemodels.me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Does that work? And yes, if there are any questions, or I don't know how you want to do this, Liz.
Well, we'll have a look. There have definitely been some questions. I just wanted to say thank you. That I teach psychology myself here at Cranley, and I do look at a lot of these things, but hearing it in the way you've put it is so good. And there's just a couple of things that really resonated with me. One of the things you said a few times was there's no perfect parent, and I think that's something actually that my mum says. You know, the wisdom of grannies. There's no perfect parent. There's no perfect child, and I think it's something that we have to remember, isn't it? Is that we're going to make mistakes as educators, as parents. Our children are going to make mistakes. That is life. And I think, you know, if we strive for that perfectionism all the time, I think, you know, it's teaching them the wrong way. And then it's definitely something I've started to do as a parent, is to admit when I feel overwhelmed and and let my children know that actually mummy's having a bad day today because I've got this going on, but it's okay. And this is, you know, it's going to be better tomorrow. And
you can tolerate that.
Yeah, just to make sure that they know it's okay as well. And that thing, as you've said as well, about getting better is always more important than being good. About again, just that 1%, 2% better, rather than always thinking that your good is good enough. And I think that is something that we do aim to do here at Cranley. You know, we are always looking to reflect, how can we do things better? And part of what we do here with our parents is having that ability as well. You know, you tell us what we're doing well, what can we do better? I'm actually looking, just while we're on here, to put together a sort of wellbeing team of parents as well.
Amazing.
So if there is anyone listening, it's something that, as part of my role for the next few years, that I want to look to do, is to get our parents involved. I've currently got a mindfulness teacher who's a parent coming in to deliver stuff to our year 12, because we know that by the time they get to year 13, the overwhelm can be real, and to develop that toolkit that they can then go into. But you know,
and I love that you're introducing it beforehand, that you're upskilling them before they reach those big sorts.
Because last year we realized by the time they got to year 13, you know, it was like they came back after the summer and there was a lot more of that overwhelm. They've got their EPQ to be in, they've got applications to university. And I know for a lot of our parents, we're talking about the top end of school by the time the children are nearly adults, but it's what we can do now to be upskilling our young people. Because for me, and I know this is the job I do, so of course it's my main focus, but you know, it is so important that we prevent them falling in the river. We don't just pick them out of the upstream. And I think with the way the world has been over the last few years, you know, we have seen increased rates of anxiety. The world is seeing that in our children. And I think is doing everything we can as parents to help with this. So thank you. And I'm gonna write ABC on my wall, on my office wall. Accept, breathe, choose how you respond. I think that's so powerful. But yes, so we have a couple of questions. If anyone has any questions, keep adding them. I know we've got Angela from the CPC in the background who is adding them to my sheet. But one of the questions is just, I think you touched upon something about parents like dealing with difficult things. Do you have any advice? I mean, right now in the world, we are seeing tragedies unfold. You know, we're seeing difficult things on the news. We've got war, we've got natural disasters. Do you have any advice for those parents who are unsure what to say to their children when they are watching this on the news, whatever age they may be?
Yeah, you know what? I did a talk the other week, and somebody said, you know, why is resilience such a buzzword? And I thought, we are living through, we've just come out the end of a global pandemic, like you said, world wars, global warming, our queen died, you know, we're saturated with all this negativity. Is it any wonder that we're all feeling that anxiety? So when children see things in the news, well, first of all, I would say try and ensure that your children, and it's not possible to always do it because it's everywhere, but try and ensure as best as possible they are accessing the age appropriate news sources. And I think that's really key. I don't know what it is locally for you. For here, we have something called News Round, and it's
news. I was just thinking of news rounds. Like, I used to love that, and yeah, I totally understand. I mean,
and we have a newspaper called First News, and it's news for children. I'm sure there'll be other local alternatives for you, but I would say it is overwhelming for adults, so we cannot expect our children to be able to watch adult news and be able to process it. Now, then there is, well, what happens if my child knows that there's been an earthquake and it's scaring them? And I think what's really key is to go with the example of an earthquake, to talk to your children or do a bit of research with them about tectonic activity. Earthquakes don't happen everywhere. What is actually happening when the plates move side by side? And then I like to think with that example, tell them about all the technologies that we've got to try and detect it, the seismometers. We watch dolphins, how they behave, to, you know, yes, natural tragedies do happen, but let's look at the bigger picture. Let's understand. And then perhaps if your child is particularly upset, can you think about where they can channel that emotion? Can they do a fundraiser? Can they send something? Can they work with the school and think about maybe writing letters to schools in those affected parts of the world that might like to hear from them? You know, let's think about, again, those things that are out of our control and where we can affect change. And then, and this is something we spoke about a lot during the pandemic, is sometimes we have to explain to the children that we just don't know yet. And I'd use that word, you know, when kids would say, oh, you know, Mummy, when does lockdown end? We don't know yet. And model that you can tolerate that uncertainty. Yeah, it does feel a bit scary, doesn't it? Because we just don't know yet. And we might be feeling uncomfortable. We'll just have to wait and see. So there's unfortunately no magic wand to sort of wave over these times where the world does feel a bit scary, but it's all in how we process it with them.
Yeah, totally. And I think it goes back to something you said earlier about finding the good in things as well. And if you can create the good in things, that it's an outlet, isn't it? Is to try and help people. Again, bringing her up again, but my mum used to say that, you know, it's that adage, always look for the helpers. Even if there's a bad situation, there's people who are acting and have done things that are bad, you always look for the people who are helping, and there's always more of those than there ever are, you know.
I love that. That's lovely.
Just another question, sorry, let me just go back to the sheet. This is from parents. It's, how do you advise parents to balance letting their child experience the distress tolerance versus stepping in to help fix the situation? I wish I knew the answer to that.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you get the answer, tell me. And you know what, I think it's actually very personal to you and your children and your parenting style. I just invite you to question your initial responses. I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's also about trying. If you do take that side step and it overwhelms your child too much, bring it back a bit. You know, I think we've got to be flexible as parents. I don't think that there's a definite answer. It's something that allows them to make progress in their understanding and build their self-efficacy without totally feeling unsupported and sort of alone.
Yeah, and that is the balance. And I think sometimes what we'll talk about in school is, parents will sometimes reach out to us if there's an issue. It's better that the child doesn't know sometimes that conversation's going on, that they don't see. We get upset as parents, and we can be annoyed with the way things happen. I think if the child sees that, then they're more likely to think, well, mum or dad's going to fix this for me. Whereas actually, sometimes that email to the teacher to say, can you keep your eye on them? Can you do a little bit of social engineering around friendships? Is better than it is to see the parent actually trying to, that they are fixing it, because you're not going to develop.
Absolutely. And I also think that sometimes as parents, we can project onto our children how to feel about a given situation. In my old school, they used to switch the classes. They'd muddle. There was a 2-form entry. At one point, they'd muddle them. Parents would say, children can't cope. It's unsettling. And I will remind myself of this when my child's friendship group gets separated. Kids could always cope. Kids could always cope if the parents struggled with it. So just watch how you speak about these things. Absolutely communicate with the school your anxiety, understand their rationale, but can that be done without your child being aware?
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes like children are individuals. They're so different. Like my children are so different. And, I always know with one of my children that the tolerance is always higher if they have eaten. And I know that sounds so silly, but depending on what time of day, what, what's going on, and it can be very, very so little resilience. And then you get home and you have a shower and you eat, and then we can sit down and talk. And it can be like with a different child. And we're like that. I mean, our children are just smaller versions, and we get to that, don't we, where we've just had enough. And actually, if there's been a number of problems in that day, you just, the tolerance is going to be much lower.
And sometimes things do just look better after a good night's sleep.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't have to solve it in the moment. Have something to eat.
Or a cuddle, or a hug, or just that kind of thing that we do is where everything is normal and everything is okay. And I think that, it's the wisdom of age, isn't it? And this is why we do these talks. We're here, a lot of our, so many of our parents are here without grandparents, without family. We want to be that village. We want to be the village that helps raise children. So I do think it's important to say that if there are parents listening and, you are struggling with certain things, we have a school counsellor, they have me, do reach out. We won't see it as being a big problem. It doesn't need to be a big problem. Your child has a tutor. The tutor sees them every day and knows them best. They have ahead of you. We have this support around children for a reason. And please do reach out to us, and we will be there to support the children. I'm just going to check if Angela's added anything else on. I cannot see anything. So, and we're coming up to time as well. So thank you, Laura, so much for all of your wisdom, for all of your help there. And like I say, if there are any parents out there who want to get in touch with Role Models UK, I will be popping all of the PowerPoint and everything that you're going to share with us onto the newsletter, so that they can, contact you. They can look at what courses and things are available. So thank you. And I'm going to go today, and I'm going to hunt the good stuff, and I'm going to make it
lovely. Well, thank you so much. Lovely. It was lovely spending the morning with you all.
You
take care.
Take care. Bye, everyone.